Hello everyone, my name's Phawx. This is going to be my review on the new Blackview Tab 18. Thank you very much to Blackview for sending this tablet out to me for review. I'm actually pretty impressed with the tablet overall. It has some really hard competition. Mostly, whenever it comes down to tablets, I often recommend to people to just get an iPad. And even the 9th generation iPad for around $330 is a very compelling, very good tablet. Unfortunately for Android tablet makers, they are effectively competing against an onslaught of a wide range of iPads, from the iPad Pro to the iPad Air to the iPad 10th generation and iPad 9th generation. The 9th generation being brand new at $330, not even used, is stiff competition to compete against. So what typically happens when people ask for my recommendation, I often just say, just get an iPad. That has been the winning combo for me. I've had an Android phone and an iPad, and that allows me to have both operating systems. And the price that I'm paying for the iPad, I honestly think is a good price for what Apple is offering. Enter in the Blackview Tab 18. This is a very interesting device, and Blackview is navigating this along the edges of wherever they can. I have seen this device on coupon go down to around $200. At $200, it is an absolute steal. There are a number of things that we're going to be talking about in this review, but mostly what we're going to be focusing on is what you're going to be getting out of this device is going to be looking at from, in my particular opinion, is something that is a fantastic streaming device with some decent enough gaming capabilities. For emulation, if you're looking at this device for emulation purposes, you really don't want to look elsewhere. Very quickly talking about the specs here, the most important part is the MediaTek G99 Helio processor. Now, this isn't a very great chip. However, it is a very good budget chip. The biggest part here is going to be the dual-core 2.2 gigahertz Cortex A76 chips. Those are going to be largely what's driving everything and giving you all of the performance that you're going to be feeling. On top of that, we have Android 13, but it's going to be using what Blackview calls Dokeos 4.0. There are some compelling features, and we'll be talking about those later on in this particular review. However, the important part is that we have 12 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM, and that is a lot of RAM to make sure that we have enough that can be loaded in, overall giving a very smooth experience. Even though this display is only 60 Hertz, the sampling rate, the touch sampling rate, is from 90 to 120 Hertz, overall giving a very smooth experience for pretty much everything that I was playing on the device. So either playing some Android-based games, you're going to be having a good time there. A lot of the more higher-end games like Call of Duty, Genshin Impact, Diablo Immortal, you're going to be running at lower settings, and you will see a bunch of aliasing happening on the screen, but it'll run fine enough. For emulation stuff, this really isn't going to be all that great. We'll touch more on that in just a second. For now, let's get into the build quality part of this review, and then we're going to touch base on some other parts of this that I want to kind of highlight, and we'll finish off the review. Okay, let's get into the build quality part of this review, and I really am impressed with how far budget tablets have come in the recent years. It used to be a long time ago, a few years ago, that a budget tablet would really just be junk. You'd have an Android tablet that would have like a gig of RAM, and you were just trying to get the biggest display possible that was hopefully as good as you could possibly get for streaming video. And the amount of features that are now on budget tablets is actually surprising. So here we have the power button, which is also the fingerprint sensor. I've had 100% success rate just using my finger to unlock. So the fingerprint sensor has been absolutely perfect for me. It does feature face unlocking as well. If you can see right here, if we turn this off and just turn it on, you're going to see a little IR blaster going, because that's trying to get the spatial data from your face in a manner that's possible to actually use face unlock, to use Android 13's face unlock feature. And that is on a budget tablet as well. Now, both of those are available. I just use the fingerprint unlocking just because it has been working perfectly. One other thing that I'm not really the biggest fan of is cameras on tablets themselves. Perhaps this is old-fashioned, but I never felt like this is something that is actually worthwhile or needed on a tablet. The picture quality that it does take is decent enough. Now, again, I don't think anyone should actually be expecting fantastic picture quality from tablet cameras. However, it is pretty decent overall considering what you're able to get out of this. And if you were thinking about giving this to like a kid, this is going to be more than sufficient for what they need, especially if they just have some projects or they just want to fool around. Going into the settings, you can see that we are running their custom version of Android, which is Dokeos. So this is running on top of Android 13, and there's a few things that we need to talk about right here. So this is something that I would have mentioned in the spec section, but we're going to talk about it a little bit right here as well. If we take a look at RAM, it says 12 gigabytes plus 12 gigabytes. Effectively, the only thing that you're getting out of this is what is swap memory. So if you're just pushing this, this is putting swap space, virtual disk space on the storage of the device itself. So we have 256 gigs of storage, and it's going to be using 12 gigs of that storage as virtual RAM. So this 12 gig plus 12 gig is nothing more than just allowing for greater swap space. It's not necessary to go up to 12 gig. It defaults to around like 4 or 6, which is honestly more than enough for what you need. One other feature that I actually do like that they've done on the Dokeos is in desktop mode. This is actually pretty cool. This will make the Android tablet kind of operate in a way that's similar to other types of operating systems. So you'll have every app that opens up in its own window. So if we go here and we open this up, all of these things will be opening up a window, and you can kind of move them around. So if you connect a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, it's going to operate very much like a traditional operating system would. So it's pretty neat. The only thing that I wish that it did was some window snapping like other operating systems do. And then to very quickly get out of PC mode, you can just go ahead and bring up the notification shade, which is on the bottom right instead of pulling down from the top. And likewise, you can go back into PC mode by just going into the notification shade and just pressing PC mode. Now, what's funny here is that on the Android side of things in non-PC mode is you can do a split screen functionality so that it actually operates much like you would want kind of the PC mode for version to actually be operating like. So if we go up here and just bring this up, we can bring up the multitasking, and then we're going to go here and we're going to say split screen, and this will bring up the split screen view where you can kind of have a different type of layout so you can kind of, go between the two of them. This is really, really nice. And again, Android 13 has a lot of these types of features, but overall, it's really nice to see how smooth this entire experience is. One other thing that I want to note real quick, another feature here that we got to talk about is the performance mode. Now, I've had performance mode on and off, and honestly, it hasn't made much of a difference at all to me. Just so you can see, I've gone ahead and done Geekbench. Let me go ahead and bring up. With the Geekbench 6 results, you can see with performance mode on and off, effectively, there is no difference whatsoever. So that particular performance mode I don't find to be all that valuable, especially because when we have performance mode off, I would hope that the clocks on the CPU would be far lower because we don't need to be pushing that much, and then we could upclock that a considerable amount. But overall, it seems like when we do so, nothing is effectively changing. So I've always just left performance mode off. And for what it's worth, when we think about the types of utility that we're trying to get out of this device, is that we're not going to be looking at something that's going to be playing a bunch of games, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. Okay, so here is the battery life, and this is what you can see from a full charge here. So you can see I have 4 days and 19 hours, almost 5 full days of actual just having it on. So you can see this is the standby time, and then I play Hearthstone for a little bit, had on standby time, played Hearthstone for again, and then I had it off for about 2 days, off on standby for about 2 days before we got down to about 0%. So the standby time on this device is relatively good. I wouldn't say it's the best I've ever seen, but it's quite decent for what it's actually doing, insofar as that it's not going to be chewing up a lot of power in the background, and it's going to be mostly usable for you whenever you need to. Having said that, you should anticipate with general use that you're going to have to actually power this device up, charge it back up every 3 to 4 days, just to make sure that you can always be able to use it whenever you need to. Having said that, it's still reasonably good for what you need to do on the device. One of the things that I really like that Blackview has done here is the inclusion of accessories that come standard with every one of these tablets. So you can see here, when I say normal types of accessories, these are the types of things that are like normal fare. So you look for a case and a screen protector for a tablet normally, and these come stock by default with every device sold. Now, while this type of screen protector isn't like the best, like you can see, it only has a few articulation points, and on the back here we only have a single divot, which means that when we fold this, we have to pretty much line this up, and that is going to be the only spot where it's really kind of secure. If we go and place it anywhere else, it just folds over. So you don't expect all that much type of articulation from this particular case. Another nice thing here is that there is a bit of a magnetic strip right over here where it will signal to the tablet to go to sleep. So the display will shut off and it'll save power when you are closing the display, which is a nice little touch and something that is normal in a lot of these types of tablets. When you lift it, it automatically powers right back on. The other nice thing is that they also include a kind of simple screen protector, and you can see it right here that this is automatically included. So we have the cutouts for the screen protector that's on there itself. One downside to the screen protector is that there is no oleophobic coating on the plastic itself. So this thin film has no oleophobic coating, so you're going to need to either apply that yourself or figure out how that's going to work. So what I'm going to do is actually remove this screen protector and see if there's an oleophobic coating on the glass itself and see how that looks. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and peel that off. Now, again, you shouldn't be removing this if you want to have some type of minimal screen protection on this. Obviously, this is a thin film, but it will protect it from some small scratches that will prevent it from going onto the screen itself. Now that I've taken off the screen protector and I'm using my finger on the raw glass itself, there still is no oleophobic coating on here, so I would really recommend just putting the oleophobic coating onto the plastic thin film itself until this starts getting scratched up, in which point you can then remove it, and then you have the oleophobic coating that you're going to need to put on the glass itself. But that is just so that you can know what to expect out of the accessories portion of this. Still, it is very nice inclusion from Blackview itself, where you don't really need to do anything, but it's nice to know right out of the box this budget tablet is going to have enough protection that you could be reasonably assured that if you were to give this to a child, that they wouldn't wreck it on day one. One thing that I wish Blackview would do, instead of just listing a 12-inch 2.4K display, is to just list the actual display resolution so that everyone knows exactly what's going to be happening. So we do have a 12-inch screen. It is 2000 by 1200. It is a 15 by 9 aspect ratio. Effectively, the DPI is 260. Now, the screen itself is at 60 Hertz. However, the touch sampling rate is actually anywhere between 90 to 120 Hertz. Typically, what I find is that it ends up being around 90 Hertz on average, even though the average says 116 here. Typically, whenever I see it do any different types of tests, it always kind of lands back at 90 Hertz. So that is the sampling rate, which is nice to see that it's above the 60 Hertz refresh rate. So effectively, when you're sliding around or doing anything on the tablet, it all feels very, very responsive and smooth. And for all intents and purposes, this is a very, very nice display. Specifically talking about gaming, there's a lot that I want to unpack here. And if we want to talk about emulation first, look somewhere else. This is not the device that you want. This doesn't actually perform all that well at all. We have a pretty anemic GPU, and those dual-core A76 cores are not going to be enough to get us across the finish line for a lot of emulation tasks. Where you're going to cap out at is basically some PS2 and some GameCube. There is a good amount of GameCube and a good amount of PS2 that will be quite playable. However, there's going to be a lot of GameCube and a lot of PS2 that will not be playable at all. So if you're looking at this and thinking you wanted a large screen device that can do emulation tasks, this is not it. However, if you were looking to also play games on top of some streaming duties, so if you're looking at Game Pass, xCloud, if you're looking at Netflix, also Netflix has their own games. So Netflix games, they have like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That game's on there, and that is just running natively as Android, so it just runs perfectly. You can connect an Xbox controller to it, you can connect any Bluetooth controller to it that you want, and play just fine. If you wanted to play any other higher-end native Android games like Call of Duty, Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact, those types of games will run just fine. However, they are going to be running at a lower spec, just so that they can run at a fluid frame rate. For me, I have actually put in around 8 hours of playing Hearthstone on this device, and it's been absolutely perfect. So if you're looking at this through the lens of playing Android games, especially that Netflix, which Netflix works on there because it has Widevine support as well. So if you wanted to stream, download stuff from Netflix, again, it makes perfect sense as a supplementary Android tablet or a tablet that you wanted to give to a kid that you didn't really care what was going to happen to it. If they break the glass or they do whatever, eventually it's almost like this should be looked at through a lens of a disposable tablet, something that is like a loaner car, a loaner tablet that you're going to give out to someone, or it's a tablet that you're going to have in the kitchen and just have it around. That's really where I see this tablet existing because it is really, really nice. However, the last bit that the Tab 18 does provide, and especially when we take a look at it through the lens of if it's around $200 and $250, is that it does have LTE capabilities, where if you wanted LTE capabilities on an iPad, you are going to be spending more because the Wi-Fi only models are that $340 price. Anything that goes over, you're going to start paying more. So the Black Tab 18 already does include that. However, because it's a MediaTek chip, not all carriers are going to work on that all that great in the US. So you're definitely going to want to double check that, especially all the bands, and make sure that they're supported. Ultimately, where I find myself being able to easily recommend this tablet is when you can find it on sale. Specifically for me, the buying price for this would be somewhere between $200 and $250. Anything outside of that, that's when I would still start recommending the 9th generation iPad as a starter. But once you go down to $200 and $250, especially because it includes a screen protector, it includes a case that already comes with it, this becomes something that is a little bit more compelling, especially when you want to give it to a child that may not be super delicate with it, and then you're thinking about the repair costs for an iPad or anything else that's on top of that. Think of this as more of something that's a little bit more disposable, again, provided that you can get this on sale. So that's how I pretty much view the Black Tab 18, is that overall for what it offers, and if it's cheap enough, this is a very compelling tablet. So that's pretty much it. I hope this video was informative. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.